So people are getting 30-year mortgages on new trucks. Yes, welcome back, my savory seeds of sunshine, and thank you, Rodney, for that question. And he actually asked, are people getting mortgages for their trucks nowadays? And while I clearly scroll through, I go to Car Gurus and I find a truck, classic truck, like I showed out yesterday's video. And we walked around and we looked at the price of some brand new trucks and why they are not selling. And it's strictly because the prices, the cost of living crisis is in front of us. People are just trying to pay for rent, mortgages, food, and yet then they're in front of these costs of these new trucks and cars and SUVs that are out of this world. I mean, as an example, a truck I saw yesterday was well over 100 grand. It was about $110,000 for a dually diesel pickup truck. So let's run a quick number here on a quick mortgage calculator, or a loan calculator, if you will. And on a $117,000 truck, I now say, let's assume we put $10,000 down, because you've got to have some down or the banks won't lend you any money. So I put a nominal amount of $10,000 down at 72 months, which is about 6 years. And that's roughly the longest term traditionally that most people can go for. Now there's 84-month terms as well, but generally we'll go with 72 months as a 6-year term at 9.99% finance rate, which is not uncommon in today's interest charges. You can find some deals, but let's just stick with that program for now. And with that $10,000 deposit, you're looking at a monthly payment of about $2,000. Now, we're also not comparing, we're not throwing GST, state taxes, and other administrative fees, as well as extras. This is the cost of the vehicle incorporated over a term of 5 or 6 years. Now, if we scale that down and we go down to 5 years, which is really realistically traditionally what most people are used to as a 5-year car loan, now you're up to almost $2,300. And if you go by my rule of thumb, if you can't afford a car within 4 years, then you probably shouldn't buy a car, SUV, or truck within that 4-year time span, because it's lost most of its value. You're outside of the depreciation curve and you're probably onto something bigger and better. But in a 4-year time frame at $10,000 down, you're actually looking at $2,716. This is absolutely absurd. I think back, and I do appreciate that comment there, Rodney. That was absolutely amazing, because you're right. I was thinking the same thing. And you know, my house, about 25 years ago, I bought my first house, and it sort of dates me, but that's okay. Hey, my first house was a 1,600 square foot, 2-story, front attached garage, big full basement, detached. I mean, it wasn't a condo, it wasn't any of that. It had a basement, full proper house, completely finished. And I bought that house at $94,000. Sure, we put a little fence and deck and grass. All in, we were probably into it for 100 grand. You know, that just puts this all in perspective. I had a house 25 years ago that I paid less than some of these pickup trucks. Now, I get inflation and I get year over year, but things are getting out of hand. And are we normalizing the idea of spending $100,000, $120,000 on a truck? I mean, I showed you the other day at the Ford dealership and a new Shelby F-150 supercharged 700 plus ponies, and they're stickering for about $190,000. Yes, I know a lot of you asked me, are these Canadian dollars? Yes, they are Canadian dollars. So, I mean, we do want to add the multiplier to that if you're talking US funds, but it doesn't change the fact that they're almost cost prohibitive for most people. And yes, it's almost at a place where people have to take out a mortgage for their new car. And then Trevor's asking a question regarding one of my videos talking about some deals that you can get. And obviously he says, really? Here in the US, we can't keep Versa or Nissan Sentra in stock. When top tier credit gets you 9% loan, even nurses making 110 grand are going with a $22,000 car. And you're absolutely right, Trevor. That's what I've been talking about in a lot of my videos. And that's where the market is trending, is full-size pickup trucks, large SUVs are clearly starting to go bye-bye. And we're seeing a year-over-year decline in their sales. And granted, yeah, we're seeing highs and lows spiking from month to month, depending on the season, post, pre-tax season, of course, holiday season, obviously new models that spark interest. Those all have influences on the influx of the marketplace. But generally speaking, year over year, trucks and full-size SUVs have been losing ground. So have electrified vehicles, and a lot of manufacturers are finding that the hard way. But now, instead of people paying that $110,000 for a full-size truck, they're making those decisions. You know what, maybe I'll just go and buy a smaller car, a Versa, a Sentra, a Civic, a Corolla. Those cars there are more palatable now to more people. So instead of that person, even in the trades, maybe buying that pickup truck traditionally 6 or 7 years ago, they might be making a decision, I kind of like the new Civic, or that little Versa is good, is cheap and dirty, gets me around, that's all I need. And that's the decision people are making. And we're seeing sales climb, and it's literally telling the story. Truck sales down, compact, subcompact cars and SUVs up. So that's literally what's happening right now, and it really boils down to cost of living crisis, the overpricing or the high escalated pricing on some of these larger vehicles that have the larger margins. Remember, these dealers also can't hide a lot of fluff in a small car like a Nissan Versa. You throw a floor mat in, that's 10% of the value of the car. So at the end of the day, just kidding, of course. The end of the day, it's easier to buy a car that has small margins, tight, small, cheap, and you can't hide a lot of margins. But these dealers, these OEMs, love selling you a fully loaded, limited this, limited that. Everything that has all of the options and the bells and whistles, that's what they're trying to sell you. And that's why in the last few years, it was harder to find base trim and a lot easier to find upscale, because they can fluff all those options in there and charge you up the schwazuli. And Ralph asks a question that he's 66 and he has a 2016 Ram 4x4, runs and drives great, probably drive it till he dies, way before the idea of driving one of these new trucks or buying one of these new trucks. How many repairs can I do for a lot less than $75,000? And thanks, Ralph. You betcha. I'm in the same boat. 2003 Ram, I've shared with you before. It's not the prettiest truck. It's not the latest technology. It doesn't even have a big screen, and actually it's still rocking a good old-fashioned CD player that skips and jumps. But it works, and it's cheap. And you know what? Maybe the odd little rust bubble. But I turn the key and it goes. I go to haul something, it works. It's easy, it's simple. If something breaks or leaks, I can usually be able to fix it myself. Parts are available, low cost, transmission's simple, engine's basic, there's no turbos, and I'll probably run it as long as I physically can. I can always put a set of tires on it. Even if the engine blows or something goes, I can throw 10 grand at it. It's a far cry from spending 60 or 70 grand on a new vehicle. And Jeans asks the question, Chevrolet is dropping the Malibus to around $21,000 US. What do you think? They're discontinuing the car, no Malibus for 25. And we've seen Ford actually drop all of their cars. But it's now starting to bite them, because now that they're struggling, electric vehicles aren't selling, the full-size trucks are too expensive, and we're seeing the sales decline. So the only vehicles they're really putting stock in right now are hybrid vehicles, and the Maverick are selling. And obviously a lot of their fleet vehicles are selling. So what we're about to see is Chevy going down the same path. And they're discounting prices because not a lot of people are buying cars. And I think it's a shame, because I think cars are a forgotten animal. And I think cars are great. They're fun, more cost effective. They're easier to park in tight spots. And honestly, a Malibu for the price of a Corolla, so you've got a full mid-size car, and it's probably one of Chevy's better vehicles. It's a staple. I mean, if you look at some of their other vehicles, they're smaller subcompact or compact cars. The Cruze was an absolute disaster, and just about everything else is a mess. The Malibu is one of those that tries real hard and actually does fairly well. The thing is, with the $21,000, you always want to make sure you're getting the out-the-door price. Make sure that they're not piling on a bunch of extras, because that's where people have been getting burned in the last few years. Sure, the base price looks good, but then you have to sign up with this interest rate at 12.5%. No. Find out what your cash out the door price is. Make sure they're not tacking on all that paint protection film for $4 grand, undercoating for another $3,000, floor mats for $2,000, because that's what some of these OEMs start doing. Make sure that if you're buying that car, because the price itself sounds pretty sturdy. Absolutely. In the Malibu, you could definitely do worse, but I would say make sure you get the full out the door price, no extras. If you need to have that film, which I would suggest if you live in one of the northern states or Canada, that you take it down to an independent shop, get it done somewhere there. You can get it done for $600 or $700 and protect the front of the paint job on it. And then basically that's it, and Bob's your uncle. So I would suggest get the out-the-door price, cash price, all in, all features and options. I don't want to pay any administrative fees, nothing extra. Just take it as is, how much. But at 21 grand, it sounds like a great buy. So Rigger also is asking the question, does any car dealerships offer 0% financing right now? Well, the truth of the matter is yes, there are some, and I've shared those videos. And definitely make sure you check out my library, because I've shared some videos with some amazing deals right now. And there are definitely many car manufacturers that are offering 0% financing, or even very low rates of 1.9 or 2.99%. Things like that. But there is some 0% financing rate options out there. But comes at a caveat, because you've got to know, what's the bank interest rates? What are the banks charging? If you were to you go buy a car and you want to personally go take out a loan at a car bank or at a bank for your new car, you're probably going to be basically paying whatever that bank rate is, say Bank of Canada plus 1%, plus 0.5%, whatever it is, you're going to be paying the bank rate plus a little bit, because that's just the way it works, service charges and so on. If these OEMs are selling their vehicles with a 0% finance rate right now, then you know it's got to come from somewhere. Either A, they can't get rid of the vehicle, and so they're incentivizing it that heavily, but B, you've got to know that where they lose on the financing, they're gaining somewhere else. So when you see 0% financing, it's first of all probably on vehicles that aren't selling very well. We're seeing a lot of 0% financing on Nissan products. We're seeing on a lot of electrified vehicles. And yes, there are some. You've got to search them around. And like I said, I do have a video that shares a few of the good deals right now. But with that said, you also have to understand why. Why is that selling for 0% financing? Clearly, they're making money somewhere else. They're probably making money. Maybe the price of that vehicle, the MSRP, is higher than it should be. Maybe the dealers have a markup on there, or maybe they'll incorporate a markup in there in association with that 0%, because usually that's what they do. It's usually take our in-house financing, but we'll give you a better deal. If you come in and pay cash $30,000 for that vehicle and they won't budge, but if you take their in-house financing, you can get that vehicle for $27,500. Always makes you wonder why that happens. Well, it's because of that. When you take the in-house financing, they know they lock you in. They're going to capitalize on some extra cash from you as you're buying it, because you're making those payments with significant interest charges. But if you're coming in cash, you're not paying that. Of course, they have no money. There's nothing left to negotiate, and all they have is the cash value that they have indebted into that vehicle or have embedded into that vehicle. And so as a result, same story goes here. 0% financing usually means you're probably paying a little bit more for the base price of the vehicle, but definitely shop around, understand, do your research, and make sure that vehicle is priced accordingly. And C Miles actually says only 9% APR for 84 months and $2,000 to $5,000 in fees, add-ons, and market adjustments. What's not to like? Yeah, absolutely. Now we look back and we retrospectively laugh when we see this, because people were paying that. People were paying over $10,000, $15,000 for, over MSRP, market adjustment fees. People were willing to pay the extra add-ons, $2,000 to $5,000. People were overpaying for everything. Why? And even high interest rates had a lot of people snookered. In 2022, later on, we start to find people were paying, at 9, 10, 12%, and subprime lenders or borrowers were getting their loans at 20 to 23%. How's that? Why even bother? My advice to you is, if that's the only game in town, I'm out. I'm sitting on the bench, because literally I'll wait that out. I'm not paying for those kind of fees. I mean, if you need a vehicle, you go in there, you sharpen your pencil, you chisel out a deal. But if they're not willing to play ball, literally I'd walk away, because in no place is there any room anymore for extra add-ons that don't make sense. Price all of your add-ons. If they want to add paint protection film, know in advance. You shouldn't be paying more than $500 to $1,000 for a significant amount of coverage. Also, market adjustment fees. There's no sense in that. I shared that video previously about my Toyota experience in the RAV4 Prime, how they wanted to charge $11,000 for a little PPF and a little undercoating just because they could. I'm good. So I just said bye-bye to that, and it's still happening. So make sure you shop cautiously, get the out-the-door price. Don't pay for extras unless you know what each individual line item is and it makes sense to you, because in most cases there's a lot of fat and fluff in there, and gap insurance, key fob maintenance like this, they'll charge you some cash for insurance like that. Most of it you never use, most of it you never capitalize, so you're basically just throwing money at the dealer. Don't buy any of that crap. Base out-the-door price, nothing but the base vehicle, tax, see you later. And that's what I say. Yeah, forget about these add-ons, market adjustment fees. If they're still trying to play that game, walk away. And MS asked the question, cost of living crisis or corporate greed? We know what's going on in the corporate levels. Obviously, CEOs Mary Barra at GM last year made $39.8 million. Stellantis CEO, also $39 million. Their wages are significant parts of the cost of every single vehicle that you buy. UAW went through a bunch of strikes. We all have rights to earn a wage, but all those strikes resulted in increased pay, which then gets transferred down to the next vehicle that you buy. Of course, the corporate greed they have to show for shareholders and stakeholders. how much they're making, and they can't lose money every single month, year over year, month over year, month, but they usually measure it quarterly to show just how good they're doing. And unfortunately for the consumer, we're at the end of the rope. We're paying for all those increased costs of inflation, of course, which we're seeing anyhow, but the corporate greed is definitely alive and well. And every single quarter or half of the year has to show positive net growth. Otherwise, shareholders aren't happy, investments are down, and the company doesn't get the funding it needs to continue on. It doesn't get the money to keep building, developing, and enhancing. So as a company, feels the need to keep escalating, charging more, making bigger profits, they have to walk that fine line of how much is too much. And clearly they've gone too far, way too far. And now it's become, in my opinion, corporate greed. And since we're talking about getting great deals right there, check it out. These car manufacturers are in serious trouble, but as a result, you could probably get yourself an amazing deal. Want to check that video out? Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. Have a great one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.